And hi there, Madam Z here, and welcome to my talk about Krampus. We're going to wait for a few minutes to people to come in to get notified that I'm going live. And let me make sure my horns are straight. My horns straight. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 12 Days of Christmas in the Prophet of Psychic Biz and Divination Academy, which is Christina Quick's group. Thank you for having me. I've enjoyed the 12 days of Christmas, and I'm going to sit here and talk about Krampus today, the lore, the myth, everything goes along with Krampus. If you're here, please say hello to everyone, and as you come in, I will say hello. If you're watching the replay, hit hashtag replay for me, and I will make sure to reply and comment on your comment. So hey, Emily, thank you for being here. You did a wonderful job. I loved your talk. I about cringed when I saw the glass break, and I was like, oh yeah, I've done that before. So it's kind of tough when you do it live and it's unexpected, but you know, that's kind of what the universe does, right? Awesome job. I totally enjoyed your talk on it. So hey, Sharon, thanks for joining me live. Madam Z here, and I will do some introductions later in a second, but I'm waiting for people to come in. Let me make sure I am in the right place, which I know I am, but I want to look and make sure Facebook is not being wonky. So let me pull the group up on my phone. So we're going to spend about 30, 45 minutes, an hour here, depending on how many people come in and how many questions y'all have. So go ahead and grab you some coffee, some tea, something to keep you cozy and warm as we spend some time learning about Krampus and Yule lore. So we have some cool stuff coming up. Hey, Desiree, thanks for joining me live today. Oh, thank you. I'm going to play some Krampus music for us. Hopefully you guys can hear that. And hopefully Facebook won't shut us down. So if they do, I'll just come back in. I don't think they will. So this is a Krampus carol. It's called the Krampus song. So it's a wonderful song, and I have it on YouTube if you want to go to YouTube and find that. So it's just a little bit alternative song that has to do with Krampus and has to do with, not anti-Santa Claus, although they say Krampus is anti-Santa Claus, which then he's not. He's not. So tell me where everybody's from. Type in the comments where you are from. Before we get started. I would love to connect with you and know where you guys are tuning in from or you're watching from. And then I'll do some introductions. So today I have a big old tall glass of tea. I'll turn that around for you. Awesome. And I am drinking ginger bourbon and mint tea. So it's a kind of a mix. It's kind of like interesting kind of, I love my Ouija cup, but it's kind of an interesting kind of combination. So I felt like we needed some Christmas cheer today. Some Yule cheer. Let me catch up on comments. Gainesville, Florida. Thanks, Sharon. So you guys should be having some nice weather down there for sure. All right. Facebook is being a little bit slow with comments. So I will try to comment and reply to you guys. Oh, it's hot today. Yeah. It's around 60, 70 here. I'm in Austin, Texas. So thank you all for joining us live for sure. So let's go ahead and talk. Let me do some introductions, and then we're going to talk and get into Krampus, the legend, the myths, the pagan kind of aspect of it, and what's going on with that today. So thank you all for joining me live for sure. So my name is Madam Z, and I am a female empowerment leader, and I empower women by teaching them magic and witchcraft. I am a master diviner, so I teach divination, tarot, throwing the bones, charm casting, spell casting is my jam. Empowerment leader, so I do a lot of full moon, new moon circles, holding circles in person and in line, and I also teach and mentor newbie witches coming out of the broom closet. So I do a lot of stuff that has to do with magic. Let's see. Hot toddy, yeah. That would be nice, wouldn't it? Hot toddy would be nice. So let me give you a little bit of my background before I get started, because there's a lot of new people in here, and you probably haven't seen my face around, although I've been in Christina's group for, gosh, 3+ years now. A lot of new people have come in, so you probably haven't seen me in the group, so I want to introduce myself to you, and I want to give you a little bit of the backstory before we get into the teachings today. Hey, Mario. Hi. Thanks for joining me live. I am a pagan high priestess. I was raised and born Catholic, religious kind of background for many, many years. And I've never really resonated with the Catholic Church, the teachings, the dogma of it. So I went to Catholic school for a very long time, was raised in Catholicism, spent most of my young years in Catholicism, but I've always was just longing for something else, longing for the female type of energy, type of representation that I was longing for, that I wasn't getting in Christianity, or wasn't being taught in the Bible. It wasn't being shown to me. I knew that the teachings just didn't vibe with me. And I knew there was something else out there in the universe that I needed in my life, and I needed to represent and be a part of. So in the middle of service, in the middle of a Catholic service, I was just, I can't do it anymore. This is not resonating with me anymore. I had to leave. So I just got up and I just left in the middle of service. And I never looked back. And that was 25+ years. So I've been doing this a very long time, before even the internet was here. And this is when, hey, Marissa, how are you? Give me some hearts and thumbs up if you guys are here listening live. And so that's when I started my journey. That's when it was pre-internet, now I really am excited for the people who have the opportunity to really dive into paganism, earth-centered studies, female studies, the wild woman female archetype, because that was not available to us. If we wanted to seek out occult type of studies or subjects, we had to really dive deep and go down in the underground kind of society and try to find it. And we had to find a teacher that was going to help us along our way. Now you can just Google the shit, right? And you can find it. And pardon my French, I cuss. So, and that is what I'm really excited about, that you guys have the opportunity to just branch out and learn about different systems, different religions, and find one that really resonates with you, that makes your heart sing, that you really connect with. So I've been doing this for 25+ years. I didn't look back when I left the Catholic Church and that kind of dogma, and I really just grasped it, and I grew. And I find that there's a lot of women out there that are coming into their female witch power, which now I started off Wiccan, and now I'm not a Wiccan anymore. I haven't been a Wiccan for many, many years. I consider myself an eclectic witch now, have been for a long time. But I started off Wiccan, and that's where my basic training as a high priestess started off in Wiccan. But then I branched out and did my own little thing, which, Madam Z's School of Witchery. So I teach that, but also pull in from different religions, different teachings, different ways of doing things that resonate with you. I empower my students and my clients to find their own magic in their life. If they want to cast a circle, cast a circle. If you don't, then don't, that kind of thing. It's your recipe. It's your magic. It's your religion. You need to make it specific to yourself. So enough about me. Can anybody relate to that? Ah, thanks, Marissa. Marissa said, love your connection to folk magic. It's funny because I grew up all over the world, but I settled in my teen years. I think I went, oh my gosh, I was 60. I had my 16th birthday in Tennessee, in a little small town outside of Chattanooga, Tennessee. And I spent most of my years in Tennessee area. Tennessee, Alabama, Georgia, and they are really connected with what we call granny magic or folk magic or Appalachian magic. And I'm really connected to the old ways of doing hoodoo, voodoo, that kind of thing. So granny magic, folk magic, the superstitions that come along with it, the natural healing herbs. So I grew up with knowing that stuff. I grew up with learning that, and it was being taught down for me from the old wise woman. The granny stuff. Hold on one second. The granny stuff that happened. So, forgot to turn that off. So it was really interesting that happened because we got to know our neighbors who really just wanted to teach us the old folk ways. Okay, so those are the wise women. If you can befriend and you can really sit down with an old witch, a wise woman, a crone, someone who can just teach you the old ways, I really, really encourage you to just sit down and have a conversation with that person over some tea, talk about the old ways of doing things, the old kind of old folk magic, and start writing that stuff down because it is a lost art for sure. So let me take a sip. So welcome. We're going to talk about Krampus today. Does anybody here know anything about Krampus? Raise your hand or give me some hearts up, some thumbs up. If anybody here has even heard of Krampus. I'm going to wait for some replies. The lag is a little bit. So Krampus is a kind of you got some hearts up. So Marissa probably knows what I'm talking about. Let me go through some of my notes first. So Krampus is a legend, folklore that started in like the Australia, Germany, and other regions near the Alps. Okay. And we're going to talk about the difference in how they were incorporated from the pagan roots into the Christian kind of roots and where they combined. So I'm going to give you some history for that. But before we do that, I want us to take a small meditation, small deep meditation. It's going to be super fast about Christmas, about Krampus and Santa Claus. And I want to take you back to when you were a child. Marissa said that you've heard of him. Sharon said, yes, I heard of him. Good. You guys are doing really well. So I'm just going to take you back to your childhood. Just a small meditation before we get into the lore. So I want you to close your eyes. I want you to think of a time when you remember the Yuletide when you were a kid. It was cold outside, so close your eyes, and I want you to envision yourself dropping yourself back into that scene of your childhood, or a scene that you wish that you were a part of. Maybe it was a movie scene that would really just resonate with you during this Yuletide time. It's cold outside. You're super excited about the energy of anticipation of Santa Claus coming to see you. You have done the Advent calendar. It is now Christmas Eve. And as we drop into the scene of Christmas Eve, you're excited about Santa Claus coming, excited about the presents he's going to bring. And as you sleep in your bed in anticipation, you hear the noise of bells. And you rise out of bed and think to yourself, that doesn't sound like Santa Claus bells. You run downstairs, hoping to catch a glimpse of Santa Claus, Kris Kringle. And all of a sudden, you see out of the corner of your eye this large beast, this hairy beast with a long tongue, cloven hooves, tree branches, a basket on his back, long, gnarly horns. His tongue is flickering back and forth, and you're frightened, and you're in the corner, and you're like, oh, that's not Santa Claus, that's Krampus. And it takes you back to the whole year and makes you think about all the bad things that you did as a child for the whole entire year. And that is what we're going to talk about today, is Krampus. Thanks, Christina. So, Krampus, like I said, started in Austria, Germany, and the other regions of the Alps. Krampus derives from the old German word Krampen, which means claw. And I want to talk a little bit about the description of Krampus before I actually show you some visual aids and show you what Krampus really looks like. But I want you to really envision the description of what Krampus looks like, or where the image comes from and how it is painted. So the description of Krampus is usually like a devilish looking kind of beast, right? With the horns and the cloven hooves, covered in fur, long, gnarly kind of teeth and tongues, kind of hangs out everywhere. Half goat, half man. He is depicted as having chains around him, which usually represents the chains being bound to the church, and we're going to talk about that later. And he carries a loud bell, and you can buy Krampus bells, and this is one of my Krampus bells, but you can buy other bells. Announces his arrival, just almost like Santa Claus does when you hear the sleigh bells ring. You will see him depicted with a sack or a basket on his back. He uses birch twigs and horsehair to like whip bad children. Okay, so the connection with the initiation of the birch twigs really is almost like a connection between the initiation rites of certain witches' covens. So that is why they think that he carries the birch twigs, because a lot of the initiations in the ancient witch or covens or Wiccan or pagan covens was that you were kind of like whipped, you know, as like a rite, an ancient passage to come into the coven. Let's see, let me catch up on comments before we go into other things. Everybody thinks that Krampus is spooky, and I kind of live on the dark side, so yeah, Krampus bell they're cool for sure. So there are two important periods that we need to discuss about Krampus and how he came about, and how the Christians kind of like embraced him, okay? Because the pagans or Christians were like, all right, pagans, we're just gonna, embrace some of your stuff. So you can have this day, you can have that day, but we're gonna like embrace them together. So they kind of like meshed the pagan community and the Christian kind of way together. And that's why you will see them kind of together, Santa Claus and Krampus. So let me show you my little Krampus doll that I have. And this is what Krampus looks like. As you can see, he has horns, he has the gnarly teeth and the tongue. And then on the back, he has this little basket where he's carrying this child. Now what he does is he will take the child or the bad kids to the underworld. And he only represents like the evil side, and we'll get more into that. But I wanted you to show you some images of what Krampus looks like. You guys can see that one. There we go. And there's an image of Krampus and Santa Claus. And it's interesting because you can see Santa is like, I'm giving all the good children stuff. When Krampus in the back saying, oh, you've been bad as hell this year, so I'm going to take you into the underworld. And then this is the similarities between Krampus and Santa Claus. Very interesting. So you will see them depicted together usually. And it is, let's talk about the pagan traditions and thoughts on how Krampus came into existence first. They're not really sure. They have a theory of how Krampus came about. They have a couple of theories. The first one is they came from, of course, a horned pagan deity, okay? And there's tons of mythology and around horned pagan deities. So if you want to research all of that, feel free. Tons of stuff. Every almost pantheon has a horned deity. It's their thought that Krampus is to be associated with the Greek Sata, S-A-T-A-H, or Sate. Another school of thought is that he is the son of Hel, which is the overseer of the underworld, which is why he brings the kids back to the underworld. Another school of thought is that he is associated with the Perkta goddess, which is the combo of good and evil. Remember, our talk is about Krampus, but it's also about Santa Claus. It's also about embracing the good versus the evil, or the night and dark, or the balance between the light and the dark, or the dark part of the year and the light part of the year. It's about balancing. They have what they call a Perkta run, and every year everybody gets dressed up as Krampus. They run around the streets, they knock on the doors, they're like, give me some stuff, or come on in, or, it's just almost like a free-for-all. They get kind of drunk and rowdy. They kind of like embrace bad behavior, fun bad behavior, not malicious. It's just in fun kind of bad behavior. Now, through the 11th and 16th century is when we saw the rise of Santa Claus. And the 17th century is when Krampus was really incorporated into the Christian winter celebration by pairing Krampus into Saint Nick. And I wanted to talk, or Saint Nicholas, really. And I wanted to talk a little bit about the history of that, because it's very important on what happened with that. So December 5th, which has already passed, is traditionally Krampus Day. Yes, he has a day dedicated to Krampus Day. In the very beginning, before whole Christianity started, right? December 6th was St. Nick's Day, or St. Nicholas's Day. And he was celebrated the most. And he was the nice kind of guy. He was the one who was giving to children. He was the one who was always charitable. He was the one who was always kind. But because Christianity started coming in, the Christian church was like, all right, we'll let you have Krampus, right? But he has to be tied to the church. So they said, if we have St. Nick, then you have to give us Krampus. And they're like, okay, fine, whatever, right? So that's where the integration of the Catholic Church and the pagan deity started, with Krampus. And that's why you always see St. Nicholas paired with Krampus, or Santa Claus paired with Krampus. Now, it moved into being the 25th of December because Christians were like, oh, we really don't want to work with St. Nicholas or have a day so devoted to them, because we want to bring it back to the birth of Christ. And they decided that December 25th is going to be the birth of Christ. So that's when they moved December 6th to the 25th. It's a whole big thing. I'm not going to really go into the whole thing, but it's very interesting, but it's a huge rabbit hole. So around that time, that's when the Catholic Church and the pagan deity of Krampus was integrated. Now, during, oh my gosh, around the, I don't know, in Germany in the 40s or something like that, I'm not sure exactly when, but they were like, no more Krampus. It's outlawed. You can't act like that. You can't be like that. He's a horrible deity. He, you know, is a horrible person. And it's just outlawed. Well, because the Alps are just so, it's such a rugged type of area, it just didn't go over well. They're like, okay, it is outlawed in this town, but not in this town, right? So they would just forget it. Just bring Krampus back. So they still celebrated Krampus, even though it was outlawed in Germany for a while. Let's catch up on comments. So let's see. Christina's like, yeah, Christina, you're so funny. And Marissa, if I can get my comments to come up. Christina's, maybe if we bring back the whippings, we'll have BS in the witching community. I know. That's a whole other kind of lie for sure. Yeah, he did get outlawed. He is handing out that. Yeah, he is. Hilarious, and they couldn't get rid of it. I know, because it was, I mean, it was a pagan community for so many years. And how would you like it if someone come into your, you know, your town, or the way you taught, the way you worship, and it was like, the way you're worshiping is wrong. You need to worship my way. Well, that wouldn't go over in my house for sure, and it wouldn't go over in my community. So instead of like having a whole revolt, they decided that they're going to bring Krampus back, okay, and let us have our horned god, which I love Krampus. Krampus kind of gets a bad rap because he looks so evil. He reminds me of like the devil, right? And the devil card, and people, when I do tarot and I bring up the devil card, they're freaked out, and I'm like, no. Don't worry about it. It's just, you know, the Christian depiction of what Krampus is, and not really what that is. So remember, we are talking about embracing the dark side of Christmas. And Krampus punishes only the badly behaved children. So let's really talk about that. Let's talk about how to balance the good part of Yule and the bad part of Yule. We all have an evil side, or a dark side, and a light side, and a good side. Santa Claus and or Kris Kringle is almost like his shadow. This is the shadow part of Santa Claus. Everybody has it. So it's almost, Santa was like, okay, Krampus, let's have a meeting of the minds. Let's get together. I have this huge list. Tommy is on the good list and Sally's on the bad list. I only have one night. You take all the bad kids. I'll take all the good kids, and then we'll meet in the morning over cider or pancakes, and we'll talk about it when we're done. So they're kind of like, cool, I can do that, and cool, let's do that. I got you, Santa. We'll get it taken care of. So it was really just about working together, right? And combining the good part and the evil part. So if you've been good the whole entire year as a child, then you really don't have any kind of, hold on a second, any kind of, I thought I turned all this stuff up. You really don't have any kind of anything to really worry about, to be honest with you. You don't. Like I said, when I took you down the meditation, you really were like, oh my God, was I good this year? Was I bad this year? What did I do, this year that I need to take inventory of that I really need to be remorseful for? Okay. So it really was an incentive for good and the consequences of evil. And we see a lot of that. We see a lot of that in Christianity, between the devil and the God, between evil and good. One of my favorite, I love a movie that has anything to do with the devil and good and evil, or the Catholic Church and the devil, or exorcism over, evil and good. So I love the whole kind of fight between them two, who comes out. So, like I said, Saint Nick really only concerns himself with the good children. And while Krampus is responsible for the bad children, Nicholas really just gives out gifts, gives out candy, just really talks to the nice, sweet children who were well behaved for the whole year. While Krampus just really is just like, you get a piece of coal in your boot. Back in the day, they used to put their boots out instead of the stockings, right? They used to put their boots out in the front door in hopes that to get candy or get fruit. And Krampus would always put coal in their boot. That's where that came from. So the sack and the basket that we talked about, this one, was to cart off the evil children to like hell. So there's a couple of ways to punish kids with this. He would either, and that sounds so horrible, but this was like, if you're not good kid, then Krampus is gonna come take you away. He would take them to hell, or he would drown them, or eat them, or whip them with birch tree twigs. Now, it sounds horrible, but it was just a threat to the kids to behave themselves. The twigs were painted gold most of the time and placed around the house all year long as an incentive to remind those kids to behave. It's kind of like the elf on the damn shelf, right? You place it in different, ways around the house to remind your kids to behave themselves. Does that make sense? Hey, Wendy, thanks for joining me live. about the devil and card tomorrow. Oh, nice. I got to join in for that. While Abrahamic religions have very clear avoidance measures of darkness, yeah, they do. Let me catch up on comments. Super interesting. It is. That's why I love Krampus, because he's so misunderstood, for sure. Just like the devil is misunderstood. But I love the fact that you need to embrace the dark side as well as the light side of Christmas, of really yourself, really of who you are internally. And that is why a lot of my clients and a lot of how I deal with it, I always tell them that you cannot be in the light 24/7. You have to embrace your demons. You have to dance with the devil. You have to make friends with things that you don't want to really face. You've got, in order to become a whole person, you have to embrace your Krampus. You have to embrace the bad part of you. You have to embrace that you can be a straight up bitch sometimes, that you don't like the light and love Lindas, that you don't like all this kind of stuff, and that you sometimes want to hex people. Right? We all are human. We all have issues. We all have emotions. We all have triggers. And sometimes it is a point in your life where you need to really just integrate your light and your dark. A lot of people in our community, heart-centered community, heart-filled type of energy, light workers, are really just wanting to live in high vibration all the time. And I tell them that you're going to get burned out. You need to take some time out, especially during the winter months, which is the dark part of the wheel of the year, which is where we are now, right? The wheel of the year is now turning. If you don't embrace the dark part of you, who you are missing out on life lessons. You are missing out on the aspect that you need to know in order for you to master it. I teach my clients a lot about changing their destiny, spell casting, changing their circumstances. And if you don't know a dark place or a dark kind of situation, or you haven't been in a bad place and haven't been out of that, then you don't know really how to deal with it if it comes again. It's all about a life lessons. If you stay away from the dark side of you, how are you going to grow? What lessons are you going to learn in life? And Krampus just shows us also that to be afraid of the dark side, of the dark kind of energies, or the time where you need to like not so energetic. You just want to lay on the couch, or you just want to not do a lot of energy work. You just want to be a little bit lazy, or you just are not feeling like dealing with people. You just want to just be in that hermit mode and retreat. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with embracing the dark energies. It's about balance. Right now, as soon as we come out of the wheel of the year, which is the dark part, which we are in now, it becomes light again. And so that's when you start to appreciate the sun. You start to appreciate your gifts again. You start to appreciate the issues that you've overcome, that you've mastered through the dark part of the year. And this is what Krampus and Santa Claus tells us, right? They're one of the same, but they're very different. And you see that they're facing each other. They're not running from each other. They're not, embracing each other. They are just like, I see you, you see me. How are we going to come together to be one? It is important as a witch, right, or a pagan, earth-centered, that you really do understand how important it is to work with your demons, to work with the dark energy. And sometimes you get to a place where you're like, I don't have to work with the dark as much anymore because I've grown in my practice, in my life. Your life kind of changes, right? So it's important that you learn that life lesson. Christina said, finding out how you really are too, and it's valuable for self-discovery. Super valuable for self-discovery. You're completely correct about that, Christina. I know a lot of people don't want to face the demons. A lot of people don't want to be punished for the shit that they have done wrong for the year, and that's why it is time, especially for now, to really just take inventory of what happened in 2019, in the past year. What did you change? What could you handle better? What are you not going to deal with anymore? What have you overcome, which is huge? We need to give ourselves props also on the things that we have mastered, the things that we have overcome, the things that we have achieved, right? Along with looking at things that we still need to do, okay? So now is a good time to do that for sure. So don't be afraid of Krampus. He's not a horrible person. He was very much a large part of the pagan worship and pagan deities. They still have campus parades. I just went to one a couple weeks, well, about a month ago. They have a huge one here in Dallas. They have one in California. They have huge campus parades in the Alps in Germany, where it's more widely embraced, right, that type of lore than it is here. So I invite you to embrace kind of the dark energy or your shadow side. Without the shadow work of who you are missing an entire part of yourself that makes you whole. The self that makes you who you are and the stuff that you can share with other people. A lot of people don't want to deal with Krampus. A lot of people don't want to deal with the shadow side. And I always tell my clients, witching is not easy, because being in tune with your witch side, being in tune with Krampus, your negative kind of energy, the energy of your shadow side, that means you're just like, what is triggering me? I've got to face this. I've got to deal with it. I've got to bring it out in the open, as much as I don't want to. And I have to do some releasing. I have to face it. I have to do some spell work around it. I have to do some healing around it. The biggest thing that my clients don't want to deal with is the shadow side. And I'm like, you're not going to be a whole person if you don't deal with the shadow side and if you don't work in the dark. Because magnificent clarity comes in the dark, for sure. A lot of transformation comes in the dark. If you think of it as like a seed, right? A seed does all of the work in the dirt. That's when it brings up all of its energy and it starts to like push through the dirt, the darkness, so it can grow and bloom and really embrace the light. But a lot of that energy starts in the dark. That growth period cannot happen if they don't have the nutrients, they don't have the strength, they don't have the things that are going on, the transformation and the strength to break through the seed, to break through the dirt, and to let your flower bloom and let your light shine. So that's why it is important to work with the dark side. If we don't deal with it, we face it, it controls us for sure. And that's why I like the chains representation of them being tied to the church. But for me, especially with the devil card, you always see the devil card in tarot, where he has chained and these two people are chained to him. That's what represents the dark side and represents Krampus to me when he is represented with chains. Traditionally, the chains represented his connection and being changed in the church. For me, it represents me being chained to my demons that I need to release, that I need to let go of, that I need to break the chains, being in, total dark the entire time, or what I need to release myself from. That is what the representation is to me with the change. It's almost like the devil card. But you look at the chains, what it represents to you. It could mean that you are tied to the Catholic Church, the traditional, or it could mean your vices that you're chained to. It could mean, anything that you need to break yourself free from, that you need to remove yourself from. And if you embrace that and you're like, break free from that, how wonderful story and transformation you have when you break free from the dark shadows, right? Now, don't think that they won't ever creep up once they show them ugly selves, or you're like, oh, I've done shadow work, I'm good, I've dealt with that, right? witches are always dealing with shadow work because life changes, situations changes, new stuff comes up in your life. But being an empowered female or empowered witch, you know, or someone who has worked on the shadow side or mastered that part of the shadow side, they know how to work with that demon or that Krampus that comes up again. They're like, oh, I dealt with this before. So when this ugly demon, you know, gnarls his head or raises his head or, you know, comes up because of a different situation, you can handle that demon. You're like, oh, I got a divorce. I raised my kids by myself. I left that shitty job. I transformed my life. I'm okay. I just know what I need to do. You become a stronger, more empowered kind of female, kind of pagan witch when you know how to spell cast and you know how to deal with the dark energies, the dark side of your shadow side. It's not as, don't think it'll ever go away, because it doesn't, because heck, Krampus and Santa Claus comes every single year. It never goes away. The energy never goes away. It cycles back every year. So don't think because you actually thought you dealt with one aspect of that you're completely done with your shadow side, right? Your shadow side and your light are dancing together. Sometimes your dark side leads and sometimes your light side leads, but they are dancing this huge tango dance through your entire life. And you will become a whole person and a better person and a stronger and wiser person if you know how to dance with your demons and dance with the devil. So Christina was like, yep, it is a lifestyle and a daily practice. It is a daily practice for sure. And Marissa said, so true, shadow is totally ongoing. Yep, totally ongoing, totally changing all the time. It'll come up in looking differently, and it'll surprise you. Shadow side always surprises you. Shadow is just like kind of hanging out in the back and is just like, I think you're not giving me enough attention today, so I'm just going to show up in a different way. So, and sometimes it manifests in other people, and that's where you're mirroring. If you're like, for example, if one person, you're like, I don't know why I don't like this person. She's never really done anything to me. I just don't like this person, but I can't figure out why I don't like this person. It's because there's some aspect of her and you that you guys are mirroring back and forth. So that means you haven't dealt with that yet. So you may not meet that person until, I don't know, you're 40, right? So that shadow hasn't come up yet. So that's another thing that you need to deal with. So it comes in other forms for sure. And it tells you how to, or teaches you how to deal with that, to embrace that, and not be afraid of it. A lot of these light and love Lindas are just like, no, I don't want to deal with my shadow side. You're being low vibe. You know, I don't want to be around you. I don't want to deal with, you know, the trauma that happened to me with the kid, with the child when I was a kid or whatever. If you don't deal with your shadow side and embrace it and work with it and tame it, then it reflects on your decisions in your life. How you choose a life partner, how you choose a job, your worthiness, your boundaries, your healthy habits, your self-sabotaging habits, your family. It manifests in all aspects across the board of your life if you don't deal with stuff on your dark side. So, yep, like layers for sure. And Wendy Moore said, right, there's going to be a need for reevaluating along the way. You are exactly correct. Christina, what's trippy to me is shadow masquerading as light and that realization. Yeah. So I'm going to put this out here, and it's pretty like controversial, but I can't believe this saying this. But you know, Christina hit it right on the head. So I'm going to, you know, put this out there. and say it. I'm going to tell you that the worst people that I have ever encountered in my own life, entire life, and I'm almost, oh my gosh, I'll be 40, 49 this year, right? 49? I had to think. Were Christians thinking and representing themselves as sons of God or sons of, Christians or Jesus loving people. They were the worst for me. Now, and goes along exactly with Christina said, masquerading as light and that realization. And it's not only Christians, I'm just telling you that, my experience for that, because they were the ones who are like, oh, you need to be like Christ-like, and they were the ones who were, stabbing each other in the back. The preachers were sleeping with all the women in the congregation, stealing all the money, lying, cheating, that kind of thing. And I'm like, you are supposed to be this whole light kind of light bearer, and you're just horrible people. And a lot of times you will see that manifested in friendships also. And those are the most devastating kind, when you trust someone and then the shadow side comes and you're just like, oh my God, I thought you were my friend. And we get a lot of that working in heart-centered type of employment, type of business also. So that's why I don't trust people who are all light and love, right? Because I'm like, oh, you're avoiding something in your life and you're not balanced. And when it comes tumbling down, you're going to bring everybody down and it's going to be a fucking train wreck. And I don't want to be a part of it. And you're up to something. And so that's why I love working with people who are like, yeah, let's do some shadow work. Let's do some, deep down transformational tarot reading. Let's see what my blocks are. Let's see what I need to deal with. Let's do some spell work. Let's do some Ouija board work. Let's get some answers because I need to get this monkey off my back. Those are the women that I love to be around. The women who aren't afraid of their shadows or aren't afraid of, yeah, I'm a total bitch. I was horrible in that situation and I know I need to work on myself. But because you're light and love all the time, Krampus is like, you need to start working on yourself and Krampus will come get you. Right? Because like I said, Krampus only rears his ugly head when you haven't been completely honest with yourself or you have done something bad to other people. And he never goes away. Your shadow side never goes away. Like I said, Santa Claus and Krampus comes around at least once a year. So once a year, you need to face your demons. Once a year, you need to work on your shadow side. And don't be afraid of it. The only way you're going to be a whole person is if you embrace your shadow side. Let's look at comments. And Marissa said, for me, it is not shadow unless it's surprising. Yeah, but always uncomfortable for me to recognize. Yeah, because I get that sometimes too, especially when, for me, in my business, when I level up my business, some of my money stuff comes up still, and I'm like, damn, I thought I dealt with that. So like I said, every time you level up in your life or every time you kind of ascend, you get a whole different energy, a whole different shadow, whole different subconscious that you've tapped into that you've never tapped into before. And then that's when a whole new shadow side comes up. That's when the whole new, like, damn, I don't want to deal with that. I didn't even know I had that issue, right? But as you evolve and as you become elevated higher into the subconscious kind of energy, stuff will come up for you. Stuff that you're just like, I didn't even know that I had to deal with that. Okay? That's a good one though, Marissa. Christina says, exhausting being triggered. It is. I've tried, and I did a whole thing, a whole rant about the word triggering or trigger. It was because I hate the word trigger, to be honest with you. I don't like the word trigger. But because for me, just like they say, oh, I'm not going to post anything, it's a trigger warning, so read below. I'm already automatically triggered before I even know what the trigger is, right? I'm like, all right, I'm already heightened because you said the word trigger, so this is gonna bother me, when it's really just about, I don't know, a cat getting caught in a hole or something like that. And I'm like, that doesn't trigger me. That doesn't. I don't know why I was triggered, but it's because for me, that person needs to learn that lesson of what triggers them and what doesn't, how to work through that. For me, trigger stuff that I have worked through on my shadow side isn't triggering to me anymore. And when you don't put a trigger warning on it, and I'm like, oh man, 5 years ago, that would have been just really horrible for me. But now I'm like, that doesn't bother me at all. High five. I have worked on my shadow side. I have worked on my shit, and I'm no longer triggered by that anymore. So I'm kind of on the fence of like, don't put trigger warnings out there. Let people kind of figure it out themselves. If they don't like it, they can click off of it. They can change the channel, whatever. I'm kind of like in between with trigger warnings because I want people to be empowered and women to just like, I want to decide if that's triggering to me, and I want to decide if I've worked through that shadow side, if I've kind of embraced that, and if it's still a touchy subject for me, then that means I need to do some more healing on that subject. So that's how I feel about the word triggering. I feel that sometimes it takes away the power from us to recognize if we have healed or not. But that's my school of thought. It's not a popular school of thought for sure, but that's mine. Let me look. Wendy was like, thank you, ownership. If you don't deal with your shadow will deal with you. None of us are above it, and it's good and healing to acknowledge these things. It is. Because, and here's another thing. I don't want you to feel bad that you are not looking forward to hanging out with your crazy uncle or your, racist kind of, father or whatever it is. Sometimes through the Yule and Christmas kind of holidays, we are meant to feel guilty because we aren't all excited about hanging out with, I don't know, your trailer trash cousin. I don't know what it is, right? Because all of the commercials and all the media and all the stuff is just crammed down our throat, all this happy stuff, and it causes guilt because you're just like, I'm not that happy about Christmas. This is the shadow side that we're talking about feeling guilty because it's not kumbaya all the time. It's not a freaking Folgers moment, right? Does everybody remember Folgers moment? And am I dating myself? Give me some hearts up if you guys remember Folgers moments, right? So it starts just manifesting your shadow side of just depression because you're not happy about the holidays. This is the worst time for like suicides, depressions, especially when you're single. I was single for most of my entire life. I was married one time for about 5 months. It's like, not for me. Bye, Felicia, pack your shit. Your shit is to the left in a box, right? And so it was very hard being a single person, seeing all that stuff, all that family, all the relationships, all the engagements, all the wedding rings, all the, the staged photos in front of the, beautiful Christmas tree kind of thing. When I'm over here by myself eating the friggin' TV dinner, right? And eating my feelings. So this is when you need to like work on your shadow side. This is the side when you're like, you need to really reevaluate in your life and think about the happy things that you need to be blessed with. So you don't have the whole happy family, but you have a wonderful support system in your friendships. You have a roof over your head. You have, food on the table. That kind of, the little things that you can really be happy for. But because this time of year we are all inundated with happy, happy, you have to be happy, and deep down inside, your shadow side is like, oh gee, I don't want to go. I don't want to deal with the crowds. I don't want to deal with, Santa. I don't want to deal with the screaming kids. I don't want to deal with, the crowds, especially as empaths. Being in crowds is hard for us, tremendously hard for us. For example, I was out in Verizon and I went during the week instead of during the weekend, and I was buying a new phone, and I was talking to the salesman, and I think it was right before Black Friday or right after Black Friday, and he was like, man, I love customer service, I love my job, but these holidays bring out the worst in people. And this is why we need to work on our shadow side. This is why we need to just really embrace and work with the light in the dark, because that person is not dealing with, yeah, I'm a horrible person when it comes to retail, whatever, so I'm just going to go on Amazon and buy my stuff because it brings out the worst in me. There is nothing wrong with not going out there and being all cheerful about Yule. It brings out a depressive kind of state sometimes. It brings out a lot of abandonment issues, a lot of family issues. And that is a time for you to really embrace your shadow side and really just, I'll get over this. This is the time of year. This is what happens. Or I'm just like, I'm going to remove myself completely and I'm going to go on a safari, or I'm going to go on a retreat, because I know that this time of energy is going to depress me. I know what to do now. I'm not going to go through this anymore this time of year, especially if you have some loved ones that have passed away to this time, right? It brings up a lot of sadness. Sometimes it's until you heal that, it's time to remove yourself from that, do some inner work, right? Some hermit mode. You may have to, like, look, folks, look, family, look, friends, I just want to be by myself. I'm going to a beach retreat. I'm going to a yoga retreat. I'm going to a self-improvement retreat. I'm going to work on myself this year. Happy Yule. I'll send a check in the mail. See you when I get back. So if you know that kind of triggers you, I just said a thing about trigger, but if you know that that is the energy that brings up on your shadow work and you're aware of that, there's nothing wrong with removing yourself from the situation and putting yourself first. There's a lot of guilt that comes around this season for sure, and I don't want you to feel that way at all. I want you to embrace the shadow side. I want you to not embrace it, but take charge of it, okay? So let's catch up on comments. Christina said to Marissa, interesting how it evokes different emotions for people. For me, it's the rage and anger. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. I'm in Austin, Texas, and the traffic here is horrible, and the rage, and I'm like, where's the season? Right? Where is the season of giving? So think about people who are less fortunate and how you can help them with soup kitchens or shelters for women, or angel tree kind of contribution. Or we always forget about the elderly in nursing homes who don't have anybody, who are missing their families. Do that kind of work. Be the ambassador for who you are and what you want to represent. And don't listen to so much of the media or what you feel is being crammed down your throat and how you should react, how you should be. A lot of people, I know a lot of my friends text me and they're like, I have to go to my family's house and I really don't want to go. I don't want to do this, but I have to. I don't want to, cook for 12 hours and cook this huge meal, and while my husband and his, buddies just hang out on the couch all day watching football, or I'm running around doing all this. I don't want to do the work of, putting up the Christmas tree. I'm like, well, then don't do it. But because you're not embracing this shadow side and you haven't dealt with your boundaries and your worthiness, you still kind of feel like you have to. It also it reminds me of, you guys can probably research this scene in oh my gosh, what was it? Family Guy, when she's running around taking care of Christmas and the Christmas tree and turkey dinner and doing all this, and Marge is running around taking care of everything. And then I think Meg is like, Mom, we're out of paper towels, and she just blows up the entire house, just breaks all the windows, and you think Christmas happens by itself, that kind of thing. So that's kind of like how it is. If you don't deal with your shadow side, you will explode or implode. It will on everybody for sure. It will show up and manifest somehow, or before you know it, you'll eat the entire pumpkin pie by yourself at midnight when everybody's asleep. Let's see. Christine was like, so true, right? Wrestle with that too. It's tough. That's a great feeling. Let's see. Christina said, it's totally okay to not be in sell mode during the time of the year. Yep. I've gotten away from that because all-consuming kind of thing, because Blair's my significant other now. We don't do the whole consumer thing anymore. We do more memories. We don't need anything. My family doesn't need anything. We contribute to the less fortunate, and then we take vacations by ourselves because that's what we want to do, and that's what we love to do. And a lot of people have not embraced their shadow side, have not dealt with saying no. They have not dealt with being worthy of putting themselves first. They have not dealt with healing that. They have not dealt with being an over people pleaser. And they have not dealt with things that don't make them happy. I'm all about do things that make you happy. Life is short. Well, this life, if you believe in that. And nobody's going to remember the things that you get. They are going to remember the memories, you know, the times together. They're not going to remember the material things. And I think we need to get away from the material things. Let's see. Yeah, Christina's like, I remember that episode. She loses it. Yeah, that episode cracks me up the entire time. So that is my talk for today. Now, I've got some prizes for you. I hope you enjoyed Krampus. Another thing you can do that I want you to do, you know how we celebrate Santa Claus by giving the reindeers carrots and leaving out milk and cookies for him. It is tradition, and I really want you to do this, is to leave out some wassail, or for us, if you don't make wassail, I make wassail, is some mulled cider or some hot beverage, some hot alcohol for Krampus, okay? Or schnapps. He really loves schnapps. So along with your cookies and your carrots and your milk and your hot chocolate, I want you to really offer a warm beverage, warm liquor to your shadow side, to your Krampus, and embrace your shadow side. And don't be afraid to dance with the devil and make friends with your shadow side. And don't feel you have to be all high vibe this time of year, or high vibe your entire life, because you get burned out. You can only, you know, vibrate at that level for so long before you're completely burned out. It takes too much energy to be at that frequency for that long. Okay, trust me, we know, especially with people who are doing this type of work, it gets tough. So here is the link to sign up for my free gift. There are 2 things that you need to do in order to become eligible for this free gift. You need to join my Facebook group, and the link is in the description. And you need to click on that link and get entered with your email address into the drawing to win a tarot reading for me for 2020. It's a 2020 insight reading. It's about a $200 value, and you will be entered into winning that. Cinnamon liquor, yeah, Fireball. That's another one, is get out that schnapps and that Fireball. That's another one that's a good one. For sure, Fireball. So I made it really simple for you. 2 steps to be entered into my 2020 Tarot Insight reading, which is about $200. And we look at every single month. Join my Facebook group. You have to join my Facebook group, and you have to enter with that link and put in your name and your email address and your information. And those are the only 2 things that you need to do in order to be entered into the drawing. And we will announce the winners later, and we will announce that in Christina's group for sure. So embrace your shadow side. Embrace your Krampus. Go get a picture of Krampus and print it out. Put it next to Santa Claus. Don't forget to honor your shadow side. It's a huge part of you. Whether you want to embrace it or not, that shadow side is still there. Join my Facebook group. Get in the drawing with that link, and then we will announce the winners later on in the Prophet Psychic Biz Divination Academy and the 12 Days of Christmas. I want to thank Christina again for hosting such a wonderful telesummit. Every year she does this. Everybody has been great. The speakers have been phenomenal. Super enjoyed sharing Krampus lore with you. I'm hoping that this inspires you to not be so afraid of the devil, right? And because the devil is just a Christian version of something that is not even really a bad thing. So do some research on Krampus. Bring him into your life along with Santa Claus or Kris Kringle, and really embrace your shadow side and don't be afraid of it. And if you're interested in working with me and being more powerful in your magic, shoot me a message, connect with me. I'm always looking for magical women to work with and helping them coming out of the broom closet. All right, that is my talk for now. I hope you enjoyed it, and see you in the group. And thanks again, Christina. Witch on, my sisters. Bye.